Welcome to Financial Issues with Shana Burt, where we join reality with truth, helping you to make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now, here's your host, Seth Udinsky, sitting in for Shana Burt.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Financial Issues. It's great to be here with you today, June 3rd, Monday, 2024. Thanks for joining us for Financial Issues. As always, I'm Seth Udinsky. Our phone lines are open, 610-363-1110, 610-363-1110. Folks, let's open with the scriptures here. 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 10 tells us this. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived, neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor drunkards, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. Folks, I chose this verse for today's show because, as you know, today begins the month of June. Now, the month of June, like any other month, is simply a sample of 30 days in our calendar made by the Lord. Therefore, these are days that we are to worship Him and make His name known. Those who do not worship the Lord and who have chosen to reject Him have hijacked this month and have called it Pride Month, where they celebrate sexual deviancy. And we've seen this now for the last several generations in our country. Many people doing the exact opposite of worshiping the Lord this month. And so as we cling to the truth during a month that our country has turned into a blasphemy, let us remember the stakes here, that our Lord must be worshiped in spirit and truth, and that those who reject God in this life have willingly chosen to rebel against Him and to live under His complete and unending justice in the next. And this is why, folks, it's so important for us to be good stewards ultimately of the gospel, because people desperately need to hear it. So as Pride Month begins, I want to remind you to stand firm on the truth, to stand firm on what is true. And what is true is that God has created humans male and female. He's created the institution of marriage to be an institution reserved for one man and one woman for one lifetime. This is a holy, sacrosanct thing. This is not something to be profaned or to be used for any kind of political agenda. This is the truth. That is what it is, because God has declared it to be the truth. And so we need to follow in lockstep with that. And I want to encourage you, if you are a Christian, hold fast to the truth. And if you're not one, consider trusting in the Lord Jesus Christ today. Well, let's get to some financial issues here, folks. The big news from last week in terms of financial issues is we saw Donald Trump's hush money trial had the guilty verdict. Many of us expected this. We expected Trump to be declared guilty because this court that is prosecuting him, was put there by the Biden DOJ. So this is very political, despite what the Biden administration will say. This is unprecedented in many ways because it is one administration actively pursuing to imprison his political rival in an election year. This is something that is wildly unprecedented. But in case you missed it, I'm sure you didn't, that last week Donald Trump was declared guilty. And so we'll see in the next couple months, I believe in July, we will see the results of that. But a very interesting thing happened over the weekend is that the presidential campaign of Donald Trump said it raised a record almost $35 million from small dollar donors in the hours immediately after this hush money criminal case conviction in New York City. The latest numbers I saw over the weekend actually were $53 million in response to the guilty verdict. Again, this is record-breaking for a president. Trump, of course, was found guilty, and he is set to face President Joe Biden in this November's election in the rematch of their 2020 contest. Very interesting here, folks. And I think a couple things for us to understand here is, again, this is a shocking reality. The ruling political party has successfully imprisoned its top rival. Yet at the same time, we see that money talks, doesn't it? Money talks. And this could be a backfiring for the Biden campaign. Perhaps they lit a fire under those people who maybe weren't so sure about Donald Trump, but now they're seeing what's happening and they're saying, you know what, I don't like this. Something about this isn't right. I'm going to support the guy who's getting imprisoned. Regardless of what happens, folks, these next 5 months will be a watershed moment in our nation's history. And so we'll be here taking you through every step of the way. As we start our show here, I want to share some wisdom from our founder, Dan Celia, on the conviction of biblically responsible investing. I want Dan's voice to be able to be heard on this show consistently, especially now as we look at the truth of BRI, founded in the gospel, and giving it to a world that so desperately needs it, especially as we begin Pride Month. Here is our founder, Dan Celia, on the conviction of biblically responsible investing.
Of course, I care more about being biblically responsible than anything else. And I've said this before, it bears repeating, that being biblically responsible and your desires there, and why so many people, you hear your people call up, I feel so good, I have such great peace about what I do, funds are doing good, everything's doing great, my portfolio looks good, I've got some down, I got some up. But the peace comes from it doesn't come from returns. Even if they think it does, even if they feel really good about the returns, that's not where it comes from. It just comes from the peace of that God gives people, I think, for that commitment. Not for, well, boy, I'm real, God's not, overjoyed because you're with one stock versus another, maybe. I don't know, maybe he is. But there's a conviction in your heart that you have when you do that. And the conviction is not any more complicated than, you know what? I'm tired of this garbage in our country. I'm tired of everywhere you go, you can't avoid certain things. And I had no idea I was supporting Planned Parenthood. I had no idea that the company that I'm investing in was involved in supporting, or had another company that was involved in pornography, and that I'm supporting that, or gambling. There's three things right there that have destroyed the moral fiber of America, and more importantly, God's family, destroyed it. And there's such a peace that comes from that. And all of this, what I'm teaching here, is a conviction.
Sure is, folks. It is a conviction. This next clip here from Dan is kind of asking and answering the question of the culture war. Who should fight the culture war? How do we face the culture war as, in some sense, being culture warriors, while also trying to encourage these big companies to not engage in the culture war, but to just do what they do well? Here's one more clip from our founder, Dan Celia. Great words of wisdom here.
We're hearing more and more companies starting to adopt the left agenda. They're okay standing up to the right because they get media to support that, but they're not going to stand up to the left. They just don't have that kind of fortitude or character. The other thing is, we got to keep in mind, not only will they not stand up to the left, that's certainly an issue, but regardless of what they believe, they're not going to stand up for their own beliefs. They're not going to do that. Since you have no backbone in leadership, how about you do nothing? How about you just stay out of the culture war? Why do you start putting the money that your company is making back into the company? I don't care if it's $800 or $800 million. How about you do what you are supposed to do as the president, CEO of a corporation, that you focus on the things that make your company a better company, that can bring value to your stockholders, that can bring answers to your board as they ask you, not things that are actually hurting your company. It makes absolutely no sense. Whatever it is you do, do it to the best of your abilities, manage that to the best of your abilities, and stay out of the culture war. Let the culture warriors on the right and the culture warriors on their left battle that out. Corporate America has no place there. They need to stay out of it.
Lisa, great comment here on the website. I miss that guy. I sure do too, Lisa. Absolutely. Hey, folks, we have a great show planned here for you, so I hope you'll stick with us. Shana Burt is going to join me in the next segment. She'll be coming on later on in the program. We'll actually have Jason McDowell join us as well in the third segment, and then I'll be taking us home in the fourth here. Lots to talk about here on financial issues, of course. We've got the start of Pride Month. Obviously, we need to be aware of this and understand what the Bible says about these things. So we'll be talking about that that in the next segment here. But phone line 610-363-1110. Of course, you can always join us on social media. And if you're new to our program and you're not really sure what in the world we're talking about, well, check us out at financialissues.org and click that Become a Partner button, where we offer our full-fledged, biblically responsible investing strategy. If you want to honor God with the money He's given you, consider becoming a partner today at financialissues.org. We'll be right back with more Financial Issues after this.
I want to make a point. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you.
I know.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay, or to go, to remain the same, or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for joining us on this first weekday of June 3rd, 2024. And you know, Seth, earlier you mentioned that this is the beginning of Pride Month.
Yeah, hooray.
Pride Month with that great scripture that you mentioned there. So, you know, I thought I'd take a minute to just kind of go back over the history of Pride Month. Well,
sounds good. Doesn't it sounds like a journey down the toilet, but a necessary one, Shana?
Yes, it is. So Pride Month originated in 1999 when President Bill Clinton declared through federal proclamation that every June in America will now be realized as Gay and Lesbian Pride Month. He said
this was the same guy who should have been impeached because of sexual deviance. Anyway, sorry, makes sense now. I understand.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Since statute of limitations no longer matters, maybe we can dig that up.
Exactly. Oh my golly, I know.
Well, he said this: I encourage all Americans to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities that celebrate our diversity, and to remember throughout the year the gay and lesbian Americans whose many and varied contributions have enriched our national life. That was Bill Clinton. Pride Month was then later expanded by President Barack Obama and President Joe Biden with the additions of other queer identities. And just last year, a gala, a Pride Bash right there on the White House lawn that ended up going really far south.
Really, really bad. I know. And Shannon, I don't know if you remember this, but didn't the Biden administration basically have to do some cleanup work afterwards, because there was some real bad deviancy that went on, and even they had to say, okay, yeah, this was a little too far.
Yeah, you know it's bad if they're saying that.
Yeah,
but
ridiculous.
You know, that's what all of this is really based on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? the whole LGBTQ agenda, the whole activity is really a form of sexual deviancy, right? It's a deviation from what God says is appropriate behavior for men and women. That is one man, one woman, sex within the confines of marriage, and the endorsement and really the pushing of this agenda. The spirit behind that is really disobedience, right? It's saying you don't have to listen to what the Bible says. You know, that's an old, antiquated book that's not relevant for the times of today. It's, you know, things are different now. Sexuality is different. Humans are different. You know, let's just throw out this whole notion of God made human beings and he knows what makes them tick and he knows what's best for them and he loves them and he made them male and female. Let's just throw all that stuff out the window and let's get into this whole agenda of you get to be the driver of your own destiny. You get to decide what you want to be. You get to even decide your sex. You can defy science. You can defy whether you have X or Y chromosomes, and you get to make the decision. And just watch those chromosomes come into line with what you decide.
You know,
it happens that way, right?
Isn't it really true that this is, at its core, this is the sin behind all sin? I mean, the sin behind all sin is the desire to be God.
Yeah.
And so God is the designer of gender. And now we're saying, no, I get to decide gender. What we're really saying is I get to be God. I get to be in control of things that God is in control of. It's ghastly. It really is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, you know, our listeners may be wondering, aren't you a financial show? Like, what does this have to do with corporate America? What does this have to do with my investment strategy? Well, according to us, it has everything to do with it because it's not just the government that has embraced this agenda. It is corporate America. Yeah. This is talked about in boardrooms. You've got DEI programs that corporations spend millions and if not billions of dollars on every year, making sure they're catering to the left who's forcing this agenda on everyone else. And so as Pride Month begins and we get into the thick of it, what are some of the corporate shenanigans that we can expect to see?
Yeah, it's pretty ghastly, as we said, Shana, unfortunately. The first one is sadly no surprise. We've talked about this company on the program before, but it is Disney, once a bastion of family-friendly entertainment, now, in my opinion, just a complete cesspool of sexual deviancy, sadly. So there was an interesting article that came out I believe it was last week. A Disney director actually called for a course correction, but it does not include getting rid of sexual agendas. So people at Disney, Shana, I think are realizing they've gotten a lot of backlash from various movies that have come out, different TV series that are openly supporting of the gay pride movement, and a lot of people are frustrated about it because they're not looking to watch a kids' TV show to get preached at by a portion of the population that is still very, very small. They just want to be entertained, you know, and it's not really all that hard to ask, quite, you know, frankly. But this particular director has called for this course correction, but he's avoiding the real issue, which is actually getting rid of those sexual agendas. It's really ridiculous. But Disney is the first one here, Shana, that we're going to look at.
Yeah, that is really just lip service, the whole course correction, because if you were really doing a course correction, maybe you would go back and re-record that scene in Lightyear, where you have a same-sex kiss between two female characters.
Exactly.
That was just in 2022.
That's exactly right.
Or, you know, if you really want to do a course correction, why don't you take down some of the drag shows off of Disney Plus?
Yep, absolutely. Or maybe not make Gonzo be a cross-dresser in Muppet Babies. It was the worst thing, Shana. It used to be one of Eloise's favorite shows, and we loved it. And then that episode came out. Can't watch it anymore because it's grotesque. So Disney just kicked off its One Magical Weekend, which is billed as a celebration where the vibrant heart of LGBTQ plus pride and music comes alive at the Walt Disney World resorts. And this event is hailed as one of the largest pride music festivals in the world. So that's one of the things.
I wonder how much it costs to put that on.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of corporate dollars, a lot of investor dollars. Yeah.
A lot of corporate dollars.
Yeah.
So that's why this matters to us.
Yeah.
Because our goal here at Financial Issues is to encourage you to be a biblically responsible investor. And here's how that breaks down. When you buy shares of a stock, like if you own Disney, or if you're considering buying Disney, I don't know why you would, because the financial numbers don't make sense either. Yeah. But let's just say that you are on that bandwagon. I mean, when I first started in the business, 20 some odd years ago, I guess coming up on 25 years ago, Disney was a great stock to pitch. People got it. They understood. They'd been to Disney World. They watched the movies, and this was before they started down this whole rabbit trail of the LGBTQ stuff. And it was a moneymaker, and people could understand the business model of Disney. Now, I can't understand the business model of Disney. Why would you cater to a small percentage of the population? And why would you tick off the parents of young children, the conservative parents who are trying to teach their children Christian values, that God made them, that Jesus loves them, that they're male and they're female? You're teaching them all of the Bible stories. Why would you then sit your kids down in front of something that's going to indoctrinate them into encouraging them to accept something that is totally opposite of what you're trying to teach them? So, in order for Disney to do these kind of things, it takes a lot of company money to produce movies. It takes a lot of company money to put on these pride events. It costs a lot of company money. So whose money does that belong to? Well, we believe that God owns everything. So whether it's money that we've invested or it's money that Disney is controlling or whatever it is, it's God's money, and we're all going to have to answer to the owner of that money at some point in time. Now, when you buy shares of a publicly traded company like Disney, let's just say, you are taking an ownership position with God's money in that company. Now, you don't get to make the day-to-day decisions about whether there's two females kissing in a Lightyear movie. You don't get to make that decision. It never went out for a proxy vote. Never heard of that happening. The shareholders didn't get to vote on it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't believe it was ever a proxy item for shareholders to vote on about whether or not they host this huge gay pride event. I don't think the shareholders got to vote on whether or not there were drag shows on Disney Plus. So you don't get to make the day-to-day decisions on what a company does with shareholder dollars, but a portion of those dollars are yours, because when the company uses company assets to generate return, that return belongs to the owners of the company, which are the shareholders. So where we draw the line, we're not asking for companies to be Christian or to support our ministry or to support ministries like Preborn or anything else like that. We're just saying, hey, just operate in excellence. If your business is media, make great movies. Stay out of the culture war. Just invest shareholder dollars in making the company more profitable. Don't engage in things that are super controversial. I mean, you're better just to stay out of it. Now, as Christians, we can't be lukewarm. We can't sit on the fence, right?
Right.
We have to be one side or the other. But corporations are not humans. They're, they should just stay out of the culture war and let us fight the culture war with our own dollars. Because you're going to alienate a good bit of your base. And unfortunately, Seth, I think we're going to see a lot of that this month.
Yeah, absolutely, Shannon. Actually, for the remainder of this week, during the second segment of each show, we're going to continue to take a look at what some of these companies are doing here. One of our friends over at FRC had a great quote here I'd love to read for us. David Clausen, who's FRC's director of the Center for Biblical Worldview, he shared his insight on this, and he basically said this quote: over the last few years, the Disney Corporation has been unmasked for who they truly are, a left-wing activist organization that has become the mouthpiece for some of the most progressive ideologies in American society. I couldn't say it any better myself, Shannon. It really is a shame. And that's why, like you said, it is so important for us to use the investment dollars that we have to fund the light, taking it out of these wicked, wretched companies and putting it into companies that, like you said, they might not be supporting Preborn. We'd love them to. But just doing what they do in excellence. That's all we ask for. It's not too much to ask.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, folks, I hope that you'll keep your eyes and your ears open as you see all of these things take place over the month of Pride, and that you'll go use our screener. Go to financialissues.org, click on the resources tab, and drop down to evaluator. Look in your portfolio and run your investments through there to see if you are unknowingly and without your permission supporting agendas like the LGBTQ Pride agenda. Well, folks, we got to take a break, but don't go anywhere. We're going to come back with more financial issues right after this.
I've been with you guys for years, and I really appreciate all you guys have done because it's straightforward. You just got to fill out your asset allocation model, and once you get it filled out, just stay the course and stay the percentages. And it's like, why isn't everybody doing this? It's crazy.
Chris,
Well,
thank you, brother.
Chris. We appreciate that.
You guys are the sons of Issachar.
Thank you for that, Chris.
Amen, Chris.
I know that's going to encourage some people and maybe get some people off the fence and thinking that this is really complicated. Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
I just love the first book of Exodus. The king says, the Jews are too many. Get rid of them. I command you to kill the firstborn. But the midwives to the Hebrews heard the order, and what did they do? They defied it. And God dealt favorably with the midwives and gave them families. He blessed them for loving life. He blessed them for saving babies. We have re-entered the death cult in this country. You think about how much we elevate death, whether it be the chopping off of parts and we call it transgender care, whether it be shouting our abortion, and you see it so beautifully in John 10:10. It is the divide of the entire scriptures. Now, most people would say John 3:16, but think about it. The enemy has come to lie, steal, cheat, and destroy. I have come to give life, and life more abundantly. That's the whole ball game, everybody. It is everything. And we have to have the joy of Jesus Christ to enjoy life and to protect it. It's a gift from above. And Preborn is leading the charge.
Securities offered through GA Repple Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of GA Repple or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Thanks for hanging with us today. Well, a financial issue that we have been talking a good bit about for a long time is debt. You know, we talk about the government overspending and how that's causing most of the financial woes that we're having in this country now, like inflation, higher taxes in the future, so many other things. But what about on the personal level? So we've talked about that too a little bit, and you know how you can wisely use debt. That there are some things that are that many people do every day, like buying cars and financing homes. Those are some wise uses of debt, and it's really hard to do those things if you don't use debt. So we encourage people to, use discretion and use wisdom about that. But in private practice, we have these discussions with clients all the time. So the things that we're talking about here on the show are really kind of an offshoot of what's happening in real life with real people, not just on the client side, but with the partners as well. So bringing back my good friend Jason McDowell to help us have a discussion about these things that we encounter in practice, and some of the advice that we share with our clients. So Jason, welcome back. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. Well, our clients ask us a lot about getting into retirement and how to pay for different things. Or a lot of times we just get a phone call that says, hey, I need to take out $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 from my account to pay down my car, or to buy a new car, to replace my car. It's getting old. Or, maybe I've got another $50,000 or $100,000 left on my mortgage, and I want to pay that off. So I wanted to go through a couple of scenarios and give some, some things to think about that we tell our clients. So, the first thing that we try to educate people on is the time value of money. So share with our audience exactly what is time value of money.
Yes, the time value of money definition is just the time is a financial concept that holds that the value of $1 today is worth more than the value of $1 in the future. So this is actually true because of growing inflation. We know inflation now, it will lessen the value of what the dollar today will buy in the future.
Yep. So there's also, with time value of money, there's something real called opportunity cost. So whenever you use your cash up today to buy an asset, a car or a home, you don't have those dollars growing for you in the future. So the opportunity cost is the difference between what you could make if you left that money invested. Let's say that you can, the markets have averaged 12% over time. We're not going to even figure on 12% because if you follow our strategy, you're going to have a diversified strategy. You're going to have some fixed income and things like that. So let's just assume that you could get 8% now, and you're looking at buying a car, and you can either use up your dollars to pay for that car, and if you have to take it out of a retirement account, you got to pay taxes on it and a penalty if you're under 59.5. Or you could finance that car maybe at, say, 6%. Well, the difference between what you would pay in interest, the 6%, and the 8% that you could potentially earn is your opportunity cost. So not only are you giving up some dollars, but you're giving up the opportunity that to get the earnings that money would reap for you if it stayed, or likely reap for you if it stayed invested. So this is true with homes too. Jason, you want to go over some of the things that we talk about with our clients when they consider withdrawing money from their portfolios to pay off their homes?
Absolutely. So with the home specifically, we get these questions from clients that are just asking, hey, I'd like to just pay off my home a little bit earlier than expected. We just want to remove all of our debt. That's wonderful that's the mindset, the fear of money and, owing, the Bible talks a lot about that. But with us, when we look at the retirement assets, we do have to factor in the taxes with the qualified account. So that's something built in there that we have to be sensitive to. But also at the same time, if the assets are actually helping them if they're taking income from these assets, if they're able to make the mortgage comfortably with their other fixed, Social Security or pension or the income sources that they might have, then why remove that block of money when that can be working for them? Because once you remove that block of money, you have lesser total account value that can work for you for the future, because expenses are only going to go up because of inflation. The same expenses you pay now, in 30 years, you're going to be paying those same expenses, even if you remove all the debt. So that's really how we like to break down retirement lifestyle, is to your income meeting your expenses. And what can you change when you're not working anymore? Only your expenses to a point. So
one of the things that I share a lot with clients is that, if you have the money to pay off your loan, you're not technically in debt, right? You're using somebody else's money, and for a very practical reason to put a roof over your head, and if you've got those golden handcuffs and you've got a loan that's in the 2s or the 3s or even the 4% range, the opportunity cost, as we just talked about, is a lot greater to take that money out, especially if you've got to pay the taxes on it. And then you've got, other things to be concerned about if you're close to that 65 age, where you could get Medicare, because they're looking at your income for Aunt Irma, right? The tax, the extra that you have to pay on Medicare premiums if your income goes over a certain amount. So that can impact you for a whole year. Well, what if you're younger? What is this, some advice that you'd have for some younger people?
Younger people, it's, in my case, first-time home buyers. We'll start with those, and then we'll work into the car conversation. Really, to us, young people that don't have assets, or they're growing assets or accumulation. We're in the accumulation years is how we like to use those. I'm 37, so if you're looking at first-time home buyers, we're really left with one option, and that is not to pay attention to the interest rates or timing of the market. Obviously, it's looking at, can you afford the mortgage after property taxes, homeowners association fees, and then of course, the actual interest rate that's built into you paying this off, most likely looking at a 30-year fixed. So what you have to do is look at saving. You have to save, because really that cost once you move into that home is going to be an expense. Luckily, it's going to be fixed, because if you're renting, it might go up with inflation. That's the part with the renting that my age group is kind of running into for sure. But you have to save. And how I like to look at it personally is, that 20% down removes that private mortgage insurance. So you don't want even more cost to what your monthly expense is going to be, because it's really just an expense. Same goes with a car. You don't have assets. So what's that expense to you in your household? How much discretionary spending do you have afterwards? There's that old saying that is, it's not how much you make, but how much you can save. You see Bloomberg and these other media outlets talk about how people that are making, we'll use the figure of 6 figures, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. Now they're probably talking about New York City and places that are very expensive. We know it's usually specific to certain areas of the country, but they're not saving anything at all. So it doesn't matter how much they make. So as a young person, it's really just how much you can save, not only just from retirement assets, but just even your emergency savings to protect you in the event of, hey, your AC goes out because you bought a really old home and it was overpriced comparatively to
how much you keep, how much you end up with it at the end of the day is the real key there. So what would you say to a young person who wants to bypass that, the time it takes to save up for that down payment, and let's say that they want to take it out of their 401k? In regards to time value of money, what would you tell them to think strongly about?
If you're looking at doing a loan, you're going to have to pay that back. So that would have to be just sort of a math cruncher there. So, but if you're 59 and a half, at least from that point, then you're looking at taxes. So if you're a young person or you're already 59 and a half, you want to take that out to buy the car, you've also got to factor in taxes around that point as well, and then possibly a payback. So it really all it depends on the situation of the person.
What about the young person who wants to take their 20% down payment for their home out of their 401k account?
Still being a young person, you've got a penalty you have to deal with. So it would have to be about the net to put in there. I would recommend it'd be best to work on the saving aspect after tax, because everything's going to be after tax for you, and leave your retirement savings with the match, hopefully with your employer, if that's what you have, to the time value of money to grow, because you're going to need that later anyways, because you might not stay in the home that you're buying. It might not be your forever home. So there's a lot of questions in that
absolutely
scenario.
And that time value of money is very crucial to the young person. If you take out that large chunk of money early on, I mean, you look at the time value of money going 20, 30, 40 years down the road. I did a quick calculation, and just around $50,000 growing at 8% 20 years down the road is somewhere around $250,000. So you look at that, that's your opportunity cost for taking out that chunk of money. And then you've got to take out, more than that if you're going to, cover the taxes too. So patience is a virtue here, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Well, Jason, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you weighing in on that and giving, a perspective, especially one for the young people to think about.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, I hear the music. That means we've got to take a break. We're so glad that you joined us today for Financial Issues. And if you want to learn more about our ministry, how we help you defund darkness with a biblically responsible investment strategy and fund the light by encouraging you to be a joyful and generous giver, go over to financialissues.org. Hang around because we're going to take a break, but we'll be back with more financial issues right after this.
If you don't get life right, you're not going to get all the other issues correct, period. It is the issue that impacts every other issue. Life is the central part of what keeps this republic together. It is the contract that the founding fathers passed down through multiple generations. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You don't have life, you don't have a republic. There is a temptation out there right now. And I want to just tell you we must resist it. There's this temptation that we cast this issue aside. How does that honor God? It doesn't. And if it wasn't for preborn, I would be super just confused and depressed because there has never been, in my opinion, a more disjointed time in the pro-life movement. We need a machine to go up against the Planned Parenthood beast. Like, we have to play offense against the pro-abortion forces in this country, okay? We have to play offense. And preborn does it in this compassionate, merciful, godly way that is just so inspiring and amazing.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. The call to surrender to Jesus is one step in our growth in holiness. And it doesn't just mean you give over a few things. It means He gets it all, including our finances, our investments. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partner today. Learn more by going to financialissues.org/join. That's financialissues.org/join.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Well, thanks for hanging with us here on Financial Issues, folks. Hope you enjoyed that segment there with Jason. Great show today. I appreciate you all so much. We'll get to at least one of those comments there on the website in just a moment. But before we do that, actually, I did want to get to one of these comments. Eddie was asking if we had an update on the preborn Mother's Day match. Eddie, thanks for asking, brother. And my answer to you is that we do not have one as of yet. I've been reaching out to preborn throughout this morning. Haven't heard back from them yet. But if I don't get that update in the next 10 minutes, we'll make sure to share that live on the show tomorrow, first thing. But I do want to just tell you all, I know at least that our numbers will be somewhere around the area of more than 300,000. I think we're probably up around, let's see, as of Friday, the beginning of Friday, we were up around $316,000 raised for preborn, over 56 ultrasound machines underwritten, which is just absolutely fantastic. And you all did a marvelous job with this campaign. I'm just blown away by God's faithfulness through all of you. We talked in the first segment about, the Trump campaign getting a record number of donations after Trump was declared guilty. But speaking of records, the FISM family, I think, if I'm not mistaken, broke a record for the preborn match. In my understanding is that we've never raised that much money for a single match for our preborn campaign before. So just an amazing job from all of you. If I get that exact number in the next 10 minutes, I will share that with all of you live on the air. If I don't get that, Eddie, I apologize. But I do know it was over 56 machines underwritten, which means, of course, thousands of babies saved, thousands of mothers coming into contact with the gospel. And of course, as well, we also will see a generous gift of that same amount come back to financial issues. So you all, because of your generosity, you blessed preborn, you blessed financial issues, and you blessed all the babies and mothers and fathers who preborn is going to reach with the gospel. It's amazing. Really cool. So thank you all so much for that. Hey, partners, just a reminder, take a look at Shana's commentary when you get the chance, and take a look at the buy list as well. There's several new additions to it here. We got the ag report coming up. Before I mention the ag here, just want to remind you that tomorrow Craig is having surgery, so please do pray for Craig. He's having a pretty serious surgery, but it's looking like it's all going to be good. I'll keep you updated as I hear from that. But we're going to hear from Craig now with the Ag Report, what's going on here in the ag world. So here is Craig Haugard with today's Ag Update.
This is Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for June 3rd. Corn closed lower for the fourth consecutive session on Friday. Now, if there's any reason for optimism we could still see a rally, it's probably found in the fact that weather continues to hinder an end to the U.S. corn planting season. Now, seasonally, December corn tends to trend higher from the 1st of June till about the middle of the month and then fades from there on into harvest. Closing price on Friday had July corn 2.5 cents lower at $4.46 1/4. Soybeans closed lower every day last week. The weather pattern in Brazil has turned dry. That's going to help the flood-ravaged portions of that nation. Brazil continues to hold a competitive price advantage on bean exports into China. That's keeping prices under pressure here in the U.S. At the close, July beans were 4 3/4 cents lower at $12.05 per bushel. On Friday, Russian government officials confirmed that $96.40 per hundred. We had August lean hog futures 25 cents higher, ending the session at $96.50 per hundredweight. Class C milk futures ended the week on a fairly strong note. We had July futures up 43 points at 20.29. This has been Craig Haugard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
That's Craig Haugard, as always, folks, giving you the ag update for our farmers and ranchers. Let's take a look here at the markets now. We didn't get to do that early in the show. They did open 20 minutes ago or so. But before we get to what they actually are looking like now, over the weekend, they couldn't really figure out where they stood on Friday. They spent the majority of the day in mixed territory, actually. The Dow Jones seemed poised to break out of its slump from the previous week, while the S&P and the NASDAQ seemed to struggle. So by Friday's closing bell, the Dow was up a full 1.5%, while the S&P was up 4/5, and the NASDAQ right at the flat line. The 10-year Treasury yields, they actually crept down a little bit from their highs. They were up around 4.7% in the middle of last week, and they came down a little bit. Right now, I'll just give you those numbers now. The 10-year Treasury yields are down around 4.46, so down considerably from where they were there. So after that 5-week win streak, the S&P 500 actually logged its first weekly decline on Friday. It capped the holiday shortened week, marked an end to a rather eventful May. Of course, we also saw the core PCE price index. That's the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. Met consensus for April despite a bigger than anticipated easing in consumer spending growth. The major indices did record sharp gains in May, even as the month sort of fizzled out by the end. For the week, last week, the S&P 500 slipped a 0.5%. The NASDAQ fell over 1%, and the Dow lost about 1% as well. But for the month, the Dow Jones crossed 40,000 for the first time. It's not there right now. It came back down. The NASDAQ actually rose almost 7% for the month. So a rough week, but a good month overall. The pre-markets were rather mixed early. They've opened now in mixed territory as well. The Dow is down about 0.8%. The S&P 500 is down 0.3%, and the NASDAQ is up about 0.7 to 0.6% or so. NVIDIA continues to push the NASDAQ in positive territory there. That's what the markets are looking like this morning. We did get a question that came in on the website. Grant, why don't we tackle that one there from Richard?
All right, from Richard. From Richard. Will the deep state now try to take down Truth Social?
That's a good question. Thank you for that question there, Richard. And I think the answer to that is yes, but I don't think they'll succeed. I think the deep state will try to take down anything that is contrary to them. I think we're seeing that pretty clearly here with what they're doing with Donald Trump, trying to imprison him. I think they see that's their only chance to be able to beat him in the polls is to lock him up. But I do think that they'll try to take Truth Social down. I don't think they're going to succeed, though. I think any indication that we've seen from that We can look at what happened with Elon Musk and Twitter, how because Elon Musk took control of it and relatively is encouraging of free speech, I think we can see a similar thing with Truth Social as well. Now, I do think the deep state will certainly try to silence Donald Trump and conservatives on the platforms that they own control of. That's why we joke all the time about getting kicked off YouTube, because we frequently get kicked off of YouTube because they don't like what we have to say. So it's kind of that idea there. But I think they'll try. I don't think they'll succeed. So that is a good question there. This week in the economy, folks, we got today the S&P Flash U.S. Manufacturing PMI. That number actually just broke. I can check that really quick here. In a couple minutes, we'll get construction spending, and then we get the ISM Manufacturing PMI. Tomorrow, we'll get factory orders. This week's pretty heavy in jobs, so we get the JOLTS job openings report after the show tomorrow. Wednesday, then we get the ADP employment numbers. We'll also get U.S. productivity. That's the final version. We get the U.S. trade deficit, of course. We'll also get the S&P Flash U.S. Services PMI and the ISM Services PMI on Wednesday. Thursday, we get our weekly jobless claims as usual. Friday, again, a big jobs day. We get non-farm payrolls. We get the unemployment rate, and we also get consumer credit. That's what we're looking at this week here. Earnings season is really winding down. There's really no big numbers to report here. I'm actually just getting a note here from Chris Lang, who does great research for us here at the ministry, saying the S&P Global U.S. Composite PMI surged to 54.4% in May. So that's up from the April number of 51.3%. That's the highest level since April 2022, and that actually beat the market expectations, which were right around April's number. So that's what that number is looking like there. It just came out. To close our show here, folks, I wanted to share with you a sad statistic, but one that needs to be shared, of course, here. So this headline is the high cost of Biden's global humanitarian, military, and strategic failures is beginning to add up. This is no surprise to us, but listen to some of these numbers here as we see the Biden administration touting being the front runners and leaders in humanitarian aid and military genius and strategic prowess. We've seen actually quite the opposite during these last 3.5 years. So the first one here is the $320 million pier off the coast of Gaza that partially sank this week in choppy waters is the latest in a series of costly U.S. military and humanitarian aid mishaps under the Biden administration. The Pentagon is not revealing how much these repairs will cost. I think that's not really a surprise to us. A couple more here, an estimated $2.5 million for food deliveries to Gaza. And again, folks, I'm just reading, this is not opinion here. I'm just reading, this is the facts. State Department spokesperson recently confirmed that Hamas terrorists have been stealing food from U.S. aid organizations. So we're paying $2.5 million for food deliveries to Gaza that Islamic terrorists are then stealing anyway. We also see 855 tons of humanitarian aid airdrops estimated at more than $17.7 million. Some of these airdrops, according to the Hamas-run civil defense, actually claimed that an airdrop killed 5 people in March. We had $100 million to build an air base in Niger that costs about $100 million a month to run. A whistleblower recently said that U.S. troops at the base are lacking basic necessities like water and basic medical care. Biden admin announced last month it's going to withdraw U.S. forces from Niger after the West African country essentially kicked them out. That kind of sounds similar to the Afghanistan withdrawal we saw a couple years ago. Meanwhile, Russia, Iran, and China, 3 of our big foes, are expanding their presence in the region there. We're also seeing, this is not a surprise to any of you, but big news here, $175 billion for Ukraine. Republicans have raised significant concerns about inappropriate or unaccounted for spending in Ukraine. Definitely. The Department of Defense issued a report in January finding more than $1 billion worth of U.S. supplied weapons were unaccounted for. That's bad stuff there. Then, of course, $90 billion worth of military equipment and weapons were left behind in Afghanistan back from the summer of 2021, now in the hands of the Taliban. Lastly here, Iran-backed Houthis have shot down as many as 6 $30 million U.S. Reaper drones since 2023. That's including 3 in May alone, using far less expensive surface-to-air missiles. Folks, this is what happens when you prioritize the wrong things and you don't have good leadership. And so we need to pray that God will bring our country back to a place of excellence. And of course, we have an opportunity for that coming up in this November. Good reminder here for you folks that regardless of what happens, we remember that God is on the throne, that God raises up leaders and brings leaders down for his glory. And so even as we look back on these 4 years of the Biden administration and possibly 8 years, we'll see God's hand at work in all of it, no matter what happens. And so that's what we're here to remind you to do. Folks, remember, all that you have belongs to the Lord. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with it. Until tomorrow, I'm Seth Udinsky. We'll see you then, God willing, for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.